By the time the boat came back for him, the island had already decided his fate, because the man who climbed aboard was not the same foreigner who had confidently stepped onto that remote Philippine shore days earlier, waving as the engine faded into the distance. His clothes hung loosely on his body, stiff with salt and dirt, his skin dull and drawn, his eyes darting constantly toward the tree line, as if the jungle itself had learned how to move. He didn't explain what happened. He didn't ask questions. He didn't even thank the boat operator. He simply sat down, gripping the edge of the boat so tightly his knuckles turned white, refusing to look back at the island that had nearly kept him. Locals watching from afar would later say that was the moment they knew something had gone wrong, not because he was injured, but because he was silent. This story doesn't begin with adventure, curiosity, or exploration. It begins with survival, and with a mistake that started the moment he chose to go alone. From a distance, the island looked harmless, almost inviting, small, green, and absent from most maps. That absence was exactly what drew him in. He was a foreign traveler, searching for the real Philippines, convinced that authenticity lived far beyond busy ports, tourist beaches, and filtered images. When locals at the harbor hesitated, warned him gently, then firmly, he mistook caution for exaggeration. Boats didn't go there often, they said. Supplies were scarce. Phone signals vanished. But to him, those weren't red flags. They were proof of untouched beauty. As the boat slowed and the shoreline approached, something shifted. The chatter stopped. The water grew unnaturally still. No dock waited for him. No footprints marked the sand. Just a narrow beach backed by a dense wall of jungle that seemed to absorb light. The moment the boat pulled away, the silence rushed in like a physical force, heavy and immediate. And for the first time, he felt it. That subtle awareness that the place he had chosen wasn't empty, just waiting. At first, everything felt like a triumph. He filmed the shoreline, narrated confidently into his camera, smiling as if he had discovered something meant only for him. He walked inland, expecting birds, insects, the chaotic life of the tropics, but found only the sound of his own footsteps snapping twigs beneath his shoes. There were no trails, no signs of past visitors, no evidence that anyone had ever stayed long. The jungle swallowed sound strangely. His voice didn't echo, didn't travel. It simply died a few feet from his mouth. That night, as he pitched his camp near the beach, his flashlight caught something high in the trees. A brief reflection, too deliberate to be an animal, too steady to be chance. He laughed it off. Fear only works if you believe in it. And he didn't. Sleep was difficult, not because of noise, but because of the absence of it. The island changed after dark. The waves went quiet. Insects fell silent. Even the wind refused to move. The stillness pressed down on him until breathing felt loud, intrusive. Sometime after midnight, he woke to the sound of movement nearby, slow and careful, not frantic like wildlife, but measured, intentional. He stayed perfectly still, heart pounding, listening as footsteps stopped just beyond the reach of his light. Then came a whisper, low and unfamiliar, drifting from the tree line, close enough to feel directed. When he forced himself to shine the flashlight, there was nothing there, no movement, no shapes, just jungle standing perfectly still. Morning brought no relief. Instead, it revealed marks in the sand near his camp, shallow dragged impressions leading from the jungle to within arm's reach of where he slept. His supplies were untouched. Nothing was stolen. Whoever came wasn't there to take. That realization settled deep in his stomach. He considered leaving, but pride spoke softly. convincingly. He told himself, exhaustion and isolation were playing tricks on his mind. He packed lighter, stayed closer to the beach, watched the tree line constantly. By midday, he found the remains of a structure half swallowed by vines, wooden posts collapsed inward, carvings etched deep into the timber, symbols repeated in careful patterns, too precise to be decoration, too fresh to be ancient. This island wasn't uninhabited. It was occupied differently. That night, the whispers returned, closer now, circling his camp, joined by breathing. Slow, synchronized, more than one source. Then came tapping, wood against wood, 3 slow knocks repeated again and again from different directions. By dawn, new carvings appeared on a tree near his camp, fresh cuts matching the symbols he'd seen inland. One symbol stood apart, larger, carved at eye level. It didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a marker. Time warped after that. Panic stretched hours thin as he tried to signal for help, finding only static on his radio. The sea looked wrong, too calm, stretched tight like glass. When he reviewed his footage, he noticed something his eyes had missed. A tall, unmoving figure deep in the trees behind him, partially obscured by leaves, watching without movement. He turned the camera off and never turned it on again. That afternoon, offerings appeared along the beach, shells, bones, woven leaves, arranged in careful patterns leading inland. They hadn't been there hours earlier. The tide hadn't touched them. They were meant to be seen. That was when he understood the island didn't reject outsiders violently. It studied them, absorbed them, decided what to do with them. As night fell, chanting replaced whispering. Shadows moved where no bodies should be, and smoke filled the air without fire. Exhaustion finally pulled him under near dawn. When he woke, his backpack sat open at the edge of the jungle, waiting. He didn't pack. He ran. The boat arrived early, cutting across the water like a rescue he hadn't earned. He never looked back. He didn't need to. The island was finished with him. Back on the mainland, he deleted the footage, refused interviews, avoided maps. He never traveled alone again. But the island followed him in subtler ways. Dreams came in sequence, revealing places he'd never seen but somehow recognized. Shadows lagged behind reflections. Patterns appeared where they shouldn't. Then came the package, no return address, containing dried leaves tied in the same offering pattern and a carved wooden symbol identical to the marker on the tree. He burned it without telling anyone. Over time, the disturbances faded, but the understanding remained. Survival wasn't escape. The island had learned him. Years later, rumors surfaced of missing travelers in unnamed regions. He felt no guilt, only inevitability. The island didn't lure people. People found it when they were already searching for silence, for isolation, for something undefined. The Twigsum Island simply answered. It wasn't fear that stayed with him, but respect. The knowledge that some places operate by rules older than permission and maps. That exploration without humility is an invitation. He never returned, not out of fear, but understanding. Because not every destination is meant to be understood. Not every silence should be broken. And not every journey should be taken alone. And if this is your first time watching this video, consider subscribing, not for fear, but for understanding, because some stories aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to remind you that not every door should be opened, not every silence should be broken, and not every journey is meant to be taken alone.